La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Hello and welcome back to La Lanterna podcast. This is episode 23 with your guest or host, actually, Fabrizio and my friend
Matt Killen. Ciao, Fabry. How are you?
Good, Matt. Everything is great, but not really, isn't it? I mean, great because we're still up there. But I mean, I think that the whole entire episode could be all just talking about what happened at the Marassi.
I agree. It was, I feel sort of spoiled, which is not a normal feeling as a Genoa fan, being upset about being second in the table, but it does kind of feel like this is a number of weeks now where we're kind of like, don't you feel like we're waiting to take that top spot and like really have it, like fully have it and have it on goal difference and everything else?
It is. And it's just like a little bit upsetting because you're seeing that the goal score, well, again, except the last match, the goal scoring opportunities are growing and are getting more clear. And ultimately, the more you do, and eventually it's a numbers game.
Yes. Right. I mean, look, you have to be clinical with your chances. You don't always get an opportunity. So I don't know. Maybe we should start talking about the match. Obviously, we hosted Brescia the last match at the Marassi. By the way, I am one of those. I'm not a Brescia sympathizer in any way, but this is a club, of course. I'd love to see them back in Serie A at some point. I think a bit of a famous old club and everything else, and so kind of a fun matchup at the Marassi.
Well, mind you, famous maybe just because it was known for Baggio, but and maybe a couple others like the Pirlo and other than that.
I'm
not trying to be snobby here, mind you. I'm not trying to be snobby.
But anyway, decently sized club, fun matchup at the Marassi, and I don't know. I mean, there's so much to talk about, I guess, to start the recap, because already we actually had a couple of changes within our starting 11.
Well, yeah. Let's say the expectations to this match were high.
Yes.
Obviously, we came with a nice, sweet streak of several wins, even though in between there was also a Coppa Italia win and whatnot.
Yeah, 3 wins on the bounce, to be exact.
Right.
And no losses in our last 6 before this game.
Exactly. So that's all still positive. So officially, let's say we're talking about obviously Genoa Brescia, that it ended 1-1. In the event someone did not know about it, I just have to be precise. But so the expectations were high. We come in with a strong team, I think. And again, I'm trying not to sound too, too pro Genoa per se. And there's like still some fans out there that are not necessarily, that we're trying to win them over and not trying necessarily to say that they're Genoani yet. But so what I'm trying to say with this is that a lot of people are saying that Genoa is the strongest contender for Serie A promotion, direct promotion, based on the calendar, based on the players, based on a whole bunch of factors, right? So again, expectations were high, and I don't know. I guess even from our last podcast, we said that both of us were expecting a clear win. Anyways, maybe close call or whatnot, but a win. I don't know. Matt, I'll leave it to you because I'm a little bit upset in the sense of up until from the match to today, I had probably almost like every day, a yo-yo type of thing, where one day I was like, it's still a strong team. Let's go. It's still worth, it's 1 point anyways. And the other day I'm more like, damn it, one day, one match, one tie, we lost 2 points. This is not right. I hate this. I hate that. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say was like, am I confused? No.
No. It's a draw that feels like a loss. And I mean, obviously that's the instance anytime a last minute goal kind of changes the outcome of the result in terms of, 3 points or 1 point or whatever it is. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of think that's the right way to think about it. Like, okay, fine. Like they have some players that are on their own account. Brescia do relatively decent. I thought. I don't know how you pronounce his name in Doy or however you say his name. A couple of the others are good, but like, come on, we're expecting to win this game. And you just want to see this team progressing because look, let's be honest. I think the way that we are, like we're looking, and this is, again, I got to be careful. I'm always got wood around or something I have to knock on when I'm on this podcast, I feel like, but I think we're kind of looking towards a halfway bit next season. And we want to see the team making those strides. We want to envision our side being competitive in the top flight and not having to turn everybody over. And I think the challenging thing when you're playing, even playing against a side that's already in the top, can't remember where they were in the top 5 when we were playing them, but like they were one of the top sides in Serie B. They were one of those sides just generally that's probably in the pack for being in the promotional places, even if it's through the playoff. So it's not like this is a terrible result by any stretch, but you want to see the team really kind of coming into it. And it's not quite happening still. And there's some positives still. There's some good things that we can talk about. There's some bad things that we can talk about. But I think at the end result, we're not necessarily seeing Genoa boss the game, I think, in a way that we thought we could and maybe should have. And it raises questions. You think about the selection, think about the players, you think about the manager. And it's a hard one, I think.
Exactly. Like I'm starting to think about a whole bunch of things and exactly to what your point, like different sites have different stats.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this match was a little bit of a dip in quality. We'll talk about also some of the reasons why, but
Yes.
also like with respects to statistics. So we still, even though we still had a good ball possession, right? That was probably the only decent thing. Passes were 488 against 273.
Yeah.
Pass accuracy went down because we were like in the mid 80s. Now we went to mid 70s, which it can be a lot, by the way. A drop of 10%.
No, definitely.
But the one that the shots is the one that preoccupied me a little bit more. So shots on target were 3-3, so equal, hence 1-1, mind you.
Right.
But the shots in total, by the statistics that I'm looking, and you might have different numbers, but
same ones, I think.
Brescia had more.
Double,
7-14. Like, come on, what was going on? Anyways, let's don't get too ahead of ourselves. First half, we see a good Genoa, diligent and so on, that we're kind of used to.
Mm-hmm.
We see an amazing, and I have to say it just because my heart goes out to him, because he was the capitano of our Primavera. So whom I'm talking about is basically Bianchi. So I didn't even think he was going to be in a starting 11, but Flavio Bianchi, which is their quote unquote striker, I think he was like a talent that there. I heard this commentary that I heard that there's 2 players that we should have never got rid of. Mm-hmm. One was Bianchi, loan him, but don't sell him, and the other one was Caso, which is in I can't remember now. Oh, who's on top of Serie B right now?
I was going to say not Tonana, but it's Frosinone.
Frosinone, thank you. Yeah. So we was sold for peanuts, $1.1 million, something like that, to Frosinone, and he's doing phenomenal. Anyways, having said this, the first match was great. 3 clear chances from Brescia in the first half, all by Flavio Bianchi.
Yep.
And Genoa did whatever they need to be doing. And at the end, we know what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, to your point, there were some really clear chances, and I don't know if you felt this way, Fabry, but the way it looked to me, it wasn't just like a spell that Brescia had. They actually had some good attacking spells throughout the first half. There were some actually really early on. I was kind of alluding to this a second ago, but I did want to kind of just mention the starting appearance for Semper in goal. I'm a little bit biased, being somewhat of a replacement keeper in a five-a-side team, having a little bit of want to shout out for that. But I think, if you looked at the Genoa rest of player ratings, there's a reason why he was up there in votes for, one of the better players in the squad. He had an amazing double save earlier on in the match, which kept the game at 0-0. And I think it turned out actually to be very crucial that he did make those saves, because of how, like you mentioned, how active kind of Brescia were in the match. But we did see some, obviously a wonderful goal from Iagello towards the end of the first half. It was the difference maker. A nice little run from him. I think it's kind of worth noting. I felt Sabelli had some excellent delivery. I don't think he was involved in that specific play, but seeing him playing out as left back, as you suggested might happen when we watched Payach, was what we did see, and I thought he did pretty dang well in that position. I think it was a good little combination play that led in a nice little run from Iagello that led to his goal, and one from distance too. Actually, not a bad little goal that he had.
Not bad at all, actually. Yeah, let me just add a couple of things to what you said was perfect. Semper, we know him for a while now. He was a great second to Sirigu. We all thought he was going to be the number one going forwards. Then Martinez came through. Yep. We know that there are two sides of who is pro, who is con, against him or whatnot. But nevertheless, that's the choice of the club, and we've learned to live with that. But nevertheless, Semper's turn, because Martinez had, I think, some injury on his shoulder or something like that. So great opportunity for Semper to show himself and whatnot. And he did show up amazingly. Like, hands down, he was, if not the co-host, the second best, to my opinion, because in my opinion, to who you just mentioned, I think personally that Sabelli was the best player, just above Semper, based on the fact of his aggressiveness, the fact that he can amazingly, at least for what we've seen so far, being able to stay both on the right side, which we've seen him like for the last little while, and now also on the left with the same type of quality, which is amazing for a terzino, as we say in Italian. In this case, will be a right back and a left back.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really seem like he drops off, honestly, too much at all when he moves across from the right to the left. And it's remarkable because he's not really just playing a defensive fullback type position. Like, he's actually delivering from either side, so basically from either foot, and he's doing it with some good success. One of the things we were talking about earlier at the beginning before we started recording was our dear old friend Yalchin and some of the struggles, I think. So
yes, that's what I said to you. Let's stop talking. Let's start recording. Because we have to put this on the recording, on the podcast
for hours on record. So this is a good one to go in on, I guess. I mean,
let me interrupt you first 1 second there. Sorry, yeah. Let's just a quick mention. My heart, and I'm using the heart symbol.
Okay, yeah, that's first.
To Strootman, based on the fact that unfortunately his dad passed.
Yes.
And it was so unfortunate and so sad for him that even at the beginning of the match, they had actually the whole entire club, from athletic preparation to all the staff, to all the players, benchers, not benchers, or whatnot. Like, you could have seen that there were probably about 40 people all lined up, and for two different reasons, for two different important reasons, but they had the jersey out there for Strootman, for in his towards his loss. And also for Payet, who was there, by the way, which is something that we did not know in the last recording. He's going to be out for 6 months. So that's something else that we will have a little bit more conversations around with respects to what's going to happen if they're going to get someone that is a free agent right now, or if we're going to wait till January in the event they want to get someone, because even though Sibora is a decent player, he's still not that great. But it's okay. He's a great sub in the event you need him, not because you want him. Let's put it that way.
I think that's fair. I have this part of me that wants to see Sibora have success. I mean, I guess we all kind of do, but
yeah, I do. Like, we've seen him. How long have we been having him?
At least well, I mean, I know we had him on loan last season, but at least 2 seasons, but if not 3.
If not 3, right?
I want to say it might have been
coming from Atalanta, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, and you saw as well with the celebration from Jagiello where he grabbed Strootman's jersey and held it up and everything. I thought that was really cool and
beautiful.
There was a statement, I think it came out today, it might have been yesterday, from Strootman himself about everything, and it was just kind of heartbreaking. He talked about how his father was, a little bit of everything for him.
His mentor, his coach, his best friend, his biggest supporter.
Yep. All of those things. And it seemed like he died at a relatively young age of 63 or so. So, it's a really sad time. I think in some ways it's wonderful that he had such a great relationship with his father and all of those things. But of course you feel for the player. And
let me remind you also that during his sickness, which was obviously what led to, unfortunately, his passing, last match, he did show up and he did ask Blessin to come into the pitch, which made that huge difference, and so on and so forth, to say, like, that's the honorable man that we're actually playing with.
Right. Yeah. So our heart goes out to the Strootman family, and hopefully it's there's no way to really get over this, but hopefully they're able to recover.
He is. I saw some pictures from the training grounds. He is on the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the training ground. He's like training and whatnot. And I actually saw this nice article from Pianeta Genoa, where from Marco Liguori. Basically, he was talking about him, Strootman, and Gudmundsson. Please take this baby to Serie A, and baby meaning Genoa. It was a kind of nice article. Anyways, so all this to go back to what we were talking before about Yeltsin.
I can't segue like that. Yes. All right. So we'll do a little bit of a prologue, and then we'll go back to the things I think were wrong, only because I don't want to go directly from that to that. But we get the goal. Some kind of heart-wrenching moments after the show of support for Strootman. Genoa are up 1-0, perhaps not a massive dominating performance in the second half. Okay, so this is the only thing where I think the statistics maybe don't tell the full story. We do see Badel pick up a second yellow, and all of a sudden we're down to 10 men with a fair amount of time left. I want to say it was like in the 70s or something when that happened.
75th. So it was 15 minutes left. And that's the one thing that there's a lot that we can talk about in this game. And I'm sure we're going to miss a whole bunch. But one of them was the fact of the first yellow to the Badel. Obviously, we've seen in the past where Blessin has learned, I think, at least was reading very well the game to say, okay, these are key important players. Based on the fact that there's yellows that come because it can happen, but they can come because that's a normal thing that can happen to that specific role. And if you do lose one player in that specific role, it can make a huge difference.
Right.
And indeed, that's what happened. So that's what I'm trying to say with this is also the fact of why didn't Blessin change him at a certain point?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of playing with fire. I mean, I obviously we had Toure on the bench, and even we could put Galdames perhaps in that position, or maybe even Porto.
Probably too fresh. Porto Nova, maybe too off, like, he was injured and whatnot, but
Yeah. So, okay, if you want to say his selections were somewhat limited, but it's still something that's obviously a little bit of a risk. And I think the second yellow was a clear yellow, unfortunately, like it was a deserved thing. And from that point, we were kind of on the defensive. Brescia had a goal ruled away for offside. They get one on like a scramble on the 94th minute. And we actually have one more chance, really good chance actually in the 95th minute. And I think Puskás, I don't know if he like froze up or thought he was offside or something, but he basically shot it directly at the keeper. And that should have been an easy walk-in goal that he had a chance.
He
for
just
it.
almost like passed it to the goalie rather than just kick it, like, some sort of potency.
Just anything. Yeah. So obviously like it ends 1-1. We're down another player to a double red or double yellow.
Second game, right?
Yeah. Second game in a row that this has happened. Or no, that's not true. The last match was against
it was Cosenza, the other
Cosenza,
one.
yeah. Lupi. But still, it's a worrisome sign. And I think just going back to some of the struggles in the player formation, I don't know. So the Yalchin thing is confounding to me. He's started in several matches running now. We were talking about this. He's a talented player, I think. I believe he is. But it's just another showing where you just wonder why Blessin is picking this guy. I don't know. Sometimes maybe he's one of those guys that does really well in the training ground and then he just can't put it together in the match. But he had a clear chance in the opening 5 or 10 minutes of the game and just sailed it way over, nowhere even close to being on target. He's one of those guys that kind of like, if he's like we were talking about, if he's not getting a goal, if he's not setting up like a really key pass, he's probably not doing something uber positive for the team. And I don't mind him as a substitute coming off, but it's just another, I feel like we've seen this so consistently from him where he gets into these good positions, he can't finish, and it feels kind of like a wasted spot on a player that we really need to get some performance out of, or a position anyway that we get some performance out of.
I was briefly looking at some statistics with respect to when he was like a starting 11 and whatnot.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that he wasn't everyone, but for example, I was looking at the Cosenza one, he wasn't, but the Cagliari he was, the Ternana he was, now at the Brescia he was, and so on. And honestly, I have to say, against Modena as well, he was. I understand that he is a talented player. He has some quality. I don't know. He's the first, and whoever knows me, and you as the first one, I never usually really talk too bad about our players. I try to give always the benefit of the doubt. I'm starting not to give too much benefit of the doubt to this player, not because, like, okay, and this is what we said just before we were recording. When I said to you that I was comparing him sort of indirectly for different reasons with Ekuban. So Ekuban, fine. We can talk about the fact of how many Genoani can talk bad about him. And we were a little bit more biased because we could see the potential and so on. But ultimately, even though Ekuban did score one goal versus Yalcin, nothing, but I personally, and we can even go and listen to the previous podcast, I can honestly say that Ekuban was bringing way more to the game rather than Yalcin.
It's you don't see him really making that difference otherwise. And what just seems to be burned in your memory after these games is that it's just the same thing. He gets in these places, he gets in a place to have a chance, and he just wastes it. And or maybe the pass is a little bit off or something else, and what sticks in your mind is like, that was an opportunity that we did not take. And I wonder, like, I don't know if there's a reason why Goodmanson did not start. I don't know if it was just like a case.
Oh, he came out from some sort of like an influenza type of thing, like a pulmonary type of influenza type of thing. So you could see that he was not full of gas even when he came on.
Yeah.
But now they're saying he's all fine, he recuperated, so that's great.
Okay. So there was a little bit of that maybe contributed to him playing. I kind of wonder as well, like what's going on with Portanova? Like,
I don't know. That's
you know more.
well, no, I do not know anything more other than the fact that as I said in in our last podcast, I don't. We're getting more used to different players with higher quality that I'm starting to see that he is just like a great guy, but, and I'm not talking about personal, but like, a player that puts all the heart in there, but at the same time, the quality is not up there. Honestly, I shouldn't say this because it's not nice, but honestly, if it wasn't for his dad, I don't even know if he was going to be like where he is. And his dad being he was a captain in the past with Genoa, like a few years back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of tend to think that we have maybe technically talented players, and that's well and good. I like what's so bad about bringing a player like Yauchin on in the 65th minute and having him contribute that way? Because
exactly. That's how I see Morielson, more like a sub.
And we've seen him have that contribution before where it was actually positive. So, maybe we have like a workhorse type player if we can't play. Because honestly, so the other side of it is, I think Aramu's pretty much nailed on as our number 10. It seems like, based off of the last several matches, and I would say generally he's
again small comment around that.
Yeah,
still lots of like mistakes, differently but similar fashion to Yalcin, but because he has shown and has not only with us but even prior to that, like that quality, I am giving him that benefit of the doubt of seeing him to do more.
Yes. No, I mean, I think the difference between Aramu and Yalchin, so of course there's the pedigree, we've seen him play, but also I would argue that in the last several matches now, there have been moments where Aramu has made a few good key passes and he has set up chances and maybe not always converted to a goal, but maybe he mishits a couple passes or something else. But he has those moments as well where it's like, okay, well, that was a chance created. I don't know if I always feel that way with Yauchin involved. And so I think while they're kind of in a way somewhat similar in some aspects in terms of how they play, but I really do believe that obviously you've got the pedigree, you have the ability as well from like set pieces and everything else that comes with that. But you do see much more of those clear chances created from from Aramu. And I kind of am hoping that we start solidifying Aramu, maybe Jagiello right next to him, because I think again Jagiello has earned a spot in the starting 11 based off of how he's performed. That's my take. And then Goodmanson, and have those be our three kind of attacking players. I feel like that's a pretty strong unit to have with Coda as the first kind of attacker. So,
and actually, having said that, Lega Serie B has nominated Jagiello as the best in the top 11 of match day 11.
Yeah, and I think it's deserved, So, yeah, I mean it was a weird match. I think Hefty being in the lineup with Sabelli was kind of exciting.
Hefty was not at 100%. Remember that.
Yes, yeah. So some if you want to pick on his performances, say what you say, but I know that there's some Genoano out there that were excited to see both of those two on the pitch together. We did get to see that, so that was great. But I don't know. I mean, we got to find a solution somehow to this. Like we need to start scoring more again.
So let me send you a question. Give you a question. Ask you a question. That is a little bit touchy.
Okay.
Are you starting to doubt Mr. Blesson?
For me, I don't know. I don't think I'm at that place with him yet. I still wonder a little bit about the squad, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I think that the way
squad or what he does with the squad.
The squad itself, I think.
Okay.
I think we have really good players. I think we do have a good best 11. I don't believe we are as great as we think we are as a team. And I know I've kind of said versions of this before, but Badel, I actually have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for Badel. If we don't have Strootman in the starting lineup next to Frendrup, the quality immediately is different. If we don't have,
we've seen that against Tanana, right?
We've seen, yeah, exactly. You see it a couple of different places. If we don't have Goodmanson in the attacking formation, it's kind of similar. Like you miss a little bit of stuff. Like maybe you see it again. Like we'll see Aramu and we'll see Jagiello. We'll see those involved.
So are you saying the dream top four meaning in the front, would be if we follow the 4-2-3-1?
Yeah,
would be Goodmanson, Aramu, Jagiello, thank you, and Cora at front. Is that the top four diamond that you see?
I believe so. And then you have behind that Strootman and Frendrup. And I think that constellation is really, really strong. And then
we're not scoring all those goals.
Well,
like many other teams.
I don't think we've actually had that many.
This is the dark Fabrizio, by the way.
No, I like it. Look, let's talk about it. Because first of all, I don't think we've had that group play all that often. I do wonder a little bit if, to your point, like is 4-2-3-1 the best formation? I'm not sure. I mean, I think in a way, like I kind of like that style so that we can allow a player like Strootman to kind of just marshal around the pitch however he pleases and go up and come back, and that you have Frendrup as a cover, and like those two things together work really well. But I do think you're right to question, we have enough. Let's just take that set of players for a second. We have enough within that core of players to score more than a goal a game. And it seems like really we might score 2. We're probably not going to score 3. We're not going to concede more than 1, but we should be providing a little bit more. And so I can understand that point. I can understand feeling like maybe we're not really living up to that part of the billing, but I still also think that we've maybe not still found and demonstrated fully what our best 11 will look like. And B, if that is the logic that you have is like the best 11 for Genoa, I am a little concerned about what the bench looks like, because you start looking, like we just kind of discussed, you have a player like Portanova who could come in off the bench. You've got a player like Yalchin. You do have Puskás, so I think like that's one way, and also Ekuban, who's going to run really hard. But like I'm not sure any of those players individually are players you put on and they change the outcome of the match like by themselves. I think we've seen that a little bit from Jagiello in instances, but we don't really have that kind of game changer player from the back. And then you look at players like Toure, who last year every single Grifone fan was rolling their eyes anytime he even made the team sheet. And this is a guy that is starting to become almost an essential backup center, holding midfielder. So I do kind of think actually we need to temper ourselves a little bit, because I'm not sure that this squad is as strong as we think. I think we should still be first in the table. Don't get me wrong. I think we should be getting more out of these games. But when you go beyond those players, I'm not sure. And I definitely don't believe that we have that creative connection within our reserve players at all. Like we don't have it. We have
not with all anyways.
Say again?
Not with all of them anyways.
Yeah, right. Well, I just, it's, you could have like Puskás come in and be like a forward that contributes to maybe like a layoff or something like that. But like Ekuban's more of an engine player who can do interesting things. I am pretty much at this point, I'm not sure what else we have from like a forward option perspective that's that interesting beyond Coda and Puskás, which is concerning to me. I'm kind of completely out at this point on Yellow.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I'm out. I don't know. We've talked about that throughout. Now I'm starting to give up on this guy. Unfortunately, was probably the only purchase that they have done since January of last year that I have not strong, I should say. He's the only one that really disappointed me.
I feel strongly about it too, though. I mean, he has looked completely out of sorts. He had a great headed goal at the beginning of the season. That was, I think, most of the work, if I remember right, was done by Goodmanson in that play. And I don't want to take away from his goal. It was a brilliant goal, but he's missed a couple others. It's one goal. And, it's another type of a thing where we've just not seen him really be involved enough. Like, an example, maybe a bad one, is our starting forward right now, Massimo Coda. We were probably hoping to have him already have 10 goals at this point.
Yeah.
But the thing you have to say about him is even if when he's not scoring goals, he is always involved. And in fact, much more than I thought he was going to be in either coming back and bringing the ball forward. You could argue if you're an anti-Blessin in that way, you could argue maybe we shouldn't be using him in that manner, but he certainly is involved in linking up play, in setting up others inside the box anyway, like in those moments. And, I've just not seen that from a player like Yeboah, and I think it also speaks volumes that Blessin is not picking him on the team sheet. And I'll say, generally speaking, it seems like Blessin's decision-making week over week on team selection, maybe Yalchin aside, seems pretty sensible.
No, I agree. The only time he put, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, in the starting 11, Yeboah, was in the Coppa Italia, and he still has shown his usual great qualities, but a very solo player that only individualist and doesn't really think about the team. That's, in a synopsis, what I think about Yeboah.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of like the basketball analogy is if you're not scoring points, you got to play defense or something like that. And it's not like this guy doesn't work hard. It's not like he's like selfish or something. I don't think those things are accurate statements. I just think that like he doesn't seem to contribute if he's not scoring goals, and he doesn't score goals very often. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we could go on and on because there's so much really to talk about. Like as you can probably sense from my tone, I'm a little bit. There's a little bit of anger, I guess.
I feel like we're bringing up like bad stuff because I feel like this too. I feel like the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like.
And I'm usually like trying to for me the glass is always half full, but this time around I'm not saying that it's half empty, but it's definitely not half full anymore. But not anymore. I shouldn't say that, but I know we've talked about quite lengthy about it, but we'll have definitely more chances and hopefully not, if you know what I mean. Anyways, let's go to our quick break as we're going to have an amazing guest from Columbus, Ohio, as a Reggina fan.
Can't wait.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message. And welcome back to our second half of our podcast. And as I mentioned to you before, we have an amazing guest from Columbus, Ohio. He's a Reggina fan, and I will only leave it back to him to explain and tell us all about him. Welcome to our podcast, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's kind of odd being a Reggina fan in Ohio. Me and my brother might be the only two, but and I guess it goes back to my ancestry. So I started researching more the league, Serie A, who could I follow? Basically, my part of my family was from Reggio Calabria. Another part of my great-grandparents came from more central Italy. So who knows if Pescara was in Serie A at the time, maybe I'd be a Pescara fan. But at the time in the early 2000s, yeah, Reggina was in Serie A. I wouldn't say flying high, pretty much surviving year after year, but I kind of just started following, Calabrian team here. I started watching Fox Soccer Channel and have some matches. I think they would show some random, it would be like a Treviso home games, Lecce home games. So whenever Reggina would play random teams, I'd be able to watch them on Fox Soccer Channel. But there were some great teams back then. Francesco Cozza and all those Nicola Amoruso and some of those great players. So they were a fun team to follow. It wasn't easy to follow, but that's sort of how my fandom came into it.
Well, first of all, I have to bow down to you for the fact that you haven't chosen what majority of Italian immigrants or second generation or even 50-50 like you, like even like one of our first guests, which is a colleague of mine, and he's from Cosenza. I think his family like from Cosenza or somewhere around there, rather than rooting for Cosenza or whatnot. He has chosen Juventus. Like that's your standard and general thing, and that's one of the, if I may say, against many that might not agree with me or whatnot, that's the sad thing about also seeing different people that are not rooting for their hometown, region, and whatnot, and they're going for just who's winning or who's most known. But that's also an issue that is in Italy too. It's not only like
I was always a bit of a contrarian growing up, so even the good teams here in the United States, I did not like. The Yankees, I would not like them. I've always been sort of that way. So, I mean, being in Ohio and sort of like in Cleveland Browns, NFL is sort of like knowing that struggle without the relegation involved.
Yeah, I don't follow too much about the Canadian sports and whatnot, but even though I'm 50-50 myself, similar in a different story, history and whatnot of you, but like all I hear, for example, on the baseball side is like the Blue Jays are the continuously non-winners type of thing, or stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you probably guys know even better than I do. But
I mean, it's liking a team that was sort of in the relegation fight every year, and something that I wasn't used to in American sports. It was exciting every year. Like it goes back in 2005 or 2006 during that match fixing scandal. Reggina was hit with a negative 15-point penalty.
That's right.
It got reduced to negative 11, but Walter Mazzari was the coach then. That was an amazing season because we survived that year. So stuff like that has been exciting to follow with this club.
Those are things that if you didn't have that pressure, I wonder how would have it ended. You know what I mean? Like if you put back on those 11 points, it would have been a totally different result. But knowing that there was that penalty, it probably pushed them even more, which sometimes, I hear a lot of Italians say, it's not right when there are some, especially under COVID, where a lot of matches had to be recuperated. So they call it like classifica falsificata, meaning like you don't really know what's happening. But at the same time, I actually like that because sometimes you're playing just to win that match rather than saying, okay, I'm here, I am okay with a tie, rather not, so it conditions the match. I don't know what you guys think.
There's like an extra layer of dread to every match, I feel like. I mean, I can relate to Dan too, I feel like, because when I started following Genoa several seasons ago, it was almost perennially a relegation kind of struggle to make sure you're staying up. And so anytime you got anything that wasn't a loss, it was kind of a big deal. And it's different than being like, safely mid-table and sort of you're in no man's land where you're not going to get relegated, and that's good, but you're not challenging for European places or whatever. And it kind of makes it, after a while, maybe a little bit kind of, I don't know if stale is the right word, but I get it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it hasn't been like completely joyous. I mean, I think it was 2012, 2013, around the time they went bankrupt. So, I mean, a lot of clubs have gone through that, start over in D, and climb back up. So, I mean, I was still passionately following them, even when I had to just listen to it on the radio feeds. Radio Touring 104 when they were in D, it was a local Reggio Calabria station. So then going back up to Lega Pro, it got a little bit easier with 11 sports and you're able to watch every match. Mm-hmm. So, and back when even during the Fox Soccer days, when I would watch them on, then trying to watch other matches throughout the year was always a challenge. So it's been a difficult journey in that sense.
So talking about that, if I may, and not trying to put like any damper around it, but Reggina almost barely made the enrollment to this year's championship as well. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like that was like a nice story, like looking at from someone like a team that almost didn't make it to this beautiful, so far anyways, decent, turnaround for the actual league.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't know how many of your listeners are aware of everything that went involved in that, but it's sort of last season was a little rocky. Alfredo Aglietti, he started pretty good, a former Chievo coach. Went into a really dry spell around December, January, and we hired Roberto Stallone. Proven with Frosinone, took them from all the way up to the top flight. When Stallone came on board, he kind of he knew how to use more of the players better, like Jeremy Menez. We were winning more; it was exciting. We finished with a comfortable, safe from relegation, and then I think it was early May is when it all just got torn apart. When our president Luca Gallo, who he's a little bit of a folk hero because he kind of rescued us from bankruptcy again a few years ago. He was a Roman entrepreneur, didn't really know too much about his businesses, but apparently he had a lot of shady stuff going on, some embezzlement, things like that. So
we've heard a lot of that, right?
Yeah. So Luca Gallo, I wake up one day and see he's arrested. I'm like, oh, what is this? And then it turns out he's under house arrest. There's all these financial issues with his company. The club's at risk, yada, yada, yada. Vicenza, they lost in the play out, and their local newspapers in Vicenza were already writing them back into the league and writing us out. I was like, oh, this is like, and I had already been through this bankruptcy once, so it's just the pain of being a Reggina fan. So it was looking bleak. And even a lot of the Reggina fans that I've connected with on my account weren't having a positive outlook on it either. I think there was only within a matter of weeks, we had to find a buyer for the club, register for the league. And the best part of all was that the lawyer investigating Gala said that the club was not considered under investigation as part of his whole thing. So as long as he got it sold, we could wipe our hands clean from Luca Gala. So yeah, it was actually an entrepreneur from Calabria, more closer to Catanzaro, so Lamizia Terme. He was the owner of a club in D, FC Lamizia Terme, Felice Saladini. And he was also, I think his business is based out of Milan. So another entrepreneur with Calabrian origins. There was a lot of rumors he would buy the club if it was going to be overseas investor. There's always sort of those rumors, but Saladini from Calabria came up with the resources and has really put together an amazing, after hiring Inzaghi and the club we've put together, it's just been an amazing journey.
So small parenthesis about Stallone, us from Genoa, we know him very well, being that he was a great striker for us back in the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken, mid 2000s or something like that. But we do really remember him dearly. With respect to Pippo Inzaghi, who doesn't know Pippo Inzaghi? Not only what he has done, even with the past 2 or 3 seasons in other Serie B spells and whatnot, the teams and whatnot, but even what he's done with this, as I mentioned to you before, and you were just describing to us, from this almost to bankrupt team to have pulled up this amazing squad and whatnot. Now, we've seen Reggina up at the top for quite a bit, almost to a surprise, a pleasant surprise, not super surprised if you think about past teams with Pippo Inzaghi. I'm not saying that Reggina is all about Pippo Inzaghi, but definitely he has brought his imprint, whatnot, right? But now lately we've seen a little bit of a dip. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it was a bit of an unprecedented start. I wouldn't say it caught some of us Reggina fans by surprise, because we knew we were putting together a really good squad. Starting that way, which was 6 wins in the first 7 matches, something like that, was a little bit surprising. But I kind of saw the fixtures that were down the road and knew that it wouldn't stay like that. Genoa and Brescia and Frosinone and Cagliari coming up. The back end of the schedule is a little bit more heavy, so I knew this was coming. We kind of hit a really rough patch with 3 losses in 4 matches. before the trip to Sardinia. So getting a point last week there was huge. And so that gives us a little bit more confidence going into Monday. Because they were probably the heaviest hitter that we've faced yet. So escaping the island with a point was huge.
So having said that, now, I don't know if Matt, you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think similarly, I starting with the beginning of Serie B, obviously, like it was almost such a present thing seeing Reggina at the top of the table that you kind of started to believe that this team has the potential, at least when you look at the goals for and against. I mean, I think that's one thing, Dan, I'm curious. Obviously, you have Menes and you've got former Genoa player in Galabinov, and actually a few former Genoa players, I think Hernani too. But in terms of, maybe it's more difficult run of fixtures these next several. Do you think the goal scoring ability that you've seen thus far, is that more of a reflection of the competition that the team's faced? Is it really just what Reggina does well? Like how should we be thinking about this as kind of opposing fans coming into this match?
Yeah, I do think it's what we do well. It's certain things just have to click. We faced, when we played Perugia, their last place, we ended up losing. Game. Gori, their goalkeeper, just stood on his head, was making ridiculous saves. So
yeah,
I think a lot of the losses we've had, there has been those moments where it's like, well, we didn't really play bad, so I don't feel too bad about this. I think it was against Parma, was a really ugly looking loss, but most of the other losses I haven't been too disappointed about. But Inzaghi really has found a way to use Menes. And, we play with a 4-3-3. He never changes it. He's pretty loyal to his starting 11 when he wins. A little bit strange that once Hernani came aboard, our captain, Lorenzo Krisetic, has been benched in favor of Hernani. So a lot of the fans are wondering where Krisetic is after losing, so many in a row. But when Menes is in a good mood and he's playing well and his minutes are managed, he's not playing 90 minutes a match. He is truly like a magician out there with the goals and the assists and what he can create. And when he's not doing well, he's trying these back heels and all this stuff that like makes you a little bit angry when you're watching him. And he's not running, struggling, doesn't want to get back. So there is, I think Inzaghi knows how to use these players really well in the 4-3-3. We have some talented wingers, talented fullbacks that can create a lot. So that's mostly where our assists are coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of, Menes has played a lot of minutes, so it's worrying. We're not too deep right there. We signed Federico Santander, but he hasn't been in shape, so we haven't seen him at all this year. But I think when the offense is clicking, they can play with anyone, really.
So you mentioned Hernani, and I just want to say this because a lot of Genoani have a little bit of resentments against him because of the quality and the name that came when he came from Parma, and the outcome. Mind you, it was like a very weird year and whatnot, so a lot of that impacted a lot of players, including himself. But how do you see his take on coming over to your team?
Well, I didn't know much about him before he came over, but he was a big signing for us. I think we wanted to sort of work out a permanent deal for him, but a little bit out of our budget. So this loan deal was sort of worked out. I don't know if he was sent back technically to Parma or who actually owns him, and then he went back to Reggina. He's impressive when I've watched him. They've already have him doing set pieces. He had an assist in our tying goal last week. It was a corner kick to Riccardo Gagliola, our defender, headed it in from Hernani's ball in the corner kick. He's doing some free kicks as well. So when he's dribbling with it, he's really fun to watch. He's kind of, and he's a tall player. He's kind of fluid with his movements, and I've enjoyed watching him so far. I'd say our midfield is our strength. Along with him, Giovanni Fabian, the 19-year-old from Inter Milan, scored 4 goals for us so far, and he's our leading goal scorer, and he's been really fun to watch. You got Zahn Meyer from Lecce, who came over this year. And then on our bench, like I said, Krisetic is one of our best players. He doesn't even get to play. Joel Obi, we signed him this year. He just played finally his first game. He's been getting into fitness. So really there's a lot of depth in that midfield. But yeah, signing Hernani has been, I think he will help us a lot.
Where do you see Reggina ending? I know it's a tough question. I get that.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
And it can change throughout.
Yeah, and coming into the season, I was more of the mindset of this is a multi-year project with Pippo Inzaghi. I'd be comfortable with a safe mid-table finish. But I don't know. After the start, I've set my expectations higher, so I plan on finishing in the playoffs at least, and aiming for that playoff spot.
Matt, did you want to add something?
No, I mean, I think like there's still a lot to be impressed by, you know, even with if the run of form more recently hasn't been as great. Like the goal difference, of course, is really long been the strongest in Serie B, maybe only by a goal now, but still plus 11, and through however many matches it's been, have been 11, I think, matches themselves. Are you, from a defensive perspective, I think Di Chiaro seems like a really strong player. Are there any concerns on that side? I mean, again, you see the goal difference, so it doesn't seem like maybe it's a total worry, but
yeah, there's a big concern in terms well, Di Chiaro is a good player. I think he leads us in assists with 3. We have a young Fiorentina player at right back, Nicola Perozzi, who's scored a couple goals, has assisted a couple goals. So they were really solid along the flanks. Thiago Cionic, our vice captain, had a nightmare of a match against Perugia. He was responsible for all 3 goals. So that was a bit worrying. But Inzaghi made a switch at keepers. So despite that excellent defense and that goal difference, Simone Colombi was benched last week for Federico Ravaglia, the Bologna keeper who's on loan. He played a good amount of games for Frosinone last year. So he has experience in the league, but Ravaglia is a different keeper. He's not as comfortable with the ball at his feet. So some of those back passes, and when he was controlling it, I was holding my breath when the players were pressing up on him. He's young. I think he's 20 years old compared to Colombi, who is the veteran experience. So I don't know after last week if Pippo will stick with Ravaglia, but it's a big concern for me. Our sporting director, Massimo Taibi, is a goalkeeper himself, and he can't seem to sign a good goalkeeper. We had Stefano Turati last season, and then he moved on loan to Frosinone, the Sassuolo keeper, and Turati was really good. But other than that, we haven't had a solid number 1 in a while. So there's sort of this uncertainty surrounding that. And then in the center of defense, like I said, I don't know if Cionic will get the start back in there. We have a great defender, Camporese, who scored ridiculous amount of goals for Cosenza last season after joining them in January for a defender. So Camporese sort of took Gionic's spot on the center of defense there. And I think it'll stay that way going forward, but a little bit shaky back there, despite that goal difference.
Yeah, but if I look at the stats, and I'm looking at the table right now, it's still the 3rd best defense of Serie B, which is still not bad. If you count,
I think it has to do with the style of Inzaghi's play. I mean, they do press forward. They do put a lot of pressure in the attacking half of the field, but it just works in that way, I guess. I mean, they're very vulnerable on the counterattack. The goals we've let in are a little bit painful sometimes. I can't remember who it was a couple of weeks ago who went like coast to coast on the corner kick, and it was like the goal of the week on the Lega B Twitter. So we're vulnerable on the counterattack in that sense. But yeah, we're not really giving teams too many opportunities. So I think it speaks more to Inzaghi's play. Our defenders haven't really been put into too much difficulty so far. Colombi hadn't had to make too many saves.
I'm not saying that I'm going to compare him to Gasperini, but if you look at another tactician and another actually he's 3-4-3 rather than a 4-3-3, but nevertheless pro again, a very nice game and a lot of goals and so on. He still takes a lot of goals as well because of the counterattack that you were talking about. So it's as long as you're scoring, it doesn't matter how many you take, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough though. I mean, I could see why there would be a little bit of a concern when you've got kind of the keeper switching in and out. You don't really know who that number one is, and then you kind of worry if there's too much, because we had the same thing a little bit in a different way. You know, we started the season with Martinez, and there were some calls from some early kind of shakiness from a lot of the fans to replace him with Semper, who played, I think, mainly, as Fabry mentioned earlier in the pod, out of injury in the last match. But the worry is, you make that change, obviously, and you've got that uncertainty, then like, A, do you kill a player's confidence? B, do you all of a sudden not have the same cohesion among the entire kind of defensive unit? And especially if you're playing really high, you know, it's not all that difficult for one mistake to be really costly. So I could see it being potentially a nervy kind of setup, although probably a really exciting one, and one that's not, it's sure to not be at least a boring match when Reggina play, it seems.
Yeah, and I have a little bit more confidence against Genoa because it's at home. We play really well at the Granillo. Haven't been so great on the road this year, and so that's been a bit of a concern. But it is our fortress, and they've been packing it this year. It's been good to see. When Pipo is brought on a month or so after the new organization was put together, it really sparked an excitement down there. Like the way they were greeting him coming off the plane at the airport, chanting his name. The fans were pumped about him. And yeah, so it's really creating an excitement down there, and ticket sales have been really good. So that I think we'll play to our strengths in terms of having the Curva Sud packed to the gills, and hopefully, you know, you never know what to expect on a Monday game though, on a weeknight. So.
Yeah, well, I don't want to jump to, we're talking about it in a little bit about what the outcome of the match itself, but what you just said kind of like scares me and it excites me at the same time when you're saying like your best form is at home. Well, that's actually the opposite of what happens to Genoa. Like our form at home has been not to expectations at all, while out, except like away on the road, except that weird match against Palermo, we basically won them all, right? So it's going to be exciting but scary at the same time from our perspective, but I guess also from your perspective as well. Yeah,
and it's a long trip too to go down there to the tip of the boot. So
well, with a plane, it's not that bad. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, to that point, do you know, Fabry, if there are many Genoa fans making the trip to?
I don't know those. That's a good question, Matt. I haven't checked. They haven't advertised how many sales have been happening.
Yeah,
they had 1,000. Yeah, they had 1,000 to Cosenza. After the Brescia game, maybe that excitement is a little bit lower. Mind you, against we didn't talk about that, but with the Brescia match, they actually had a turnout of 26,000 in total. Oh, wow. After with the 20,000 season passes.
Yeah.
But, you know, am I expecting the same turnout as Cosenza? Maybe not, because Cosenza is known to have like that kind of friendship that we have with them.
And also a Saturday game. Yeah.
It's a Saturday game. And exactly to Dan's point, on a Monday, it's a little bit different. The fact that you've seen the whole league happening and those results and whatnot. So it could be beneficial or controversial at the same time. It's ugly to play on a Monday, to be true. Yeah. But I guess, yeah, no. So looking at the table again, Dan, if I may, so I see Reggina at the fourth spot, a solid fourth spot, together with that other revelation, which was Bari, and also that Parma, which is recuperating, but that big disappointment from last year and this year is hanging in there, but not at probably what the Parmensi would wish for. What I'm trying to say with this, I guess, is, and then you have like another trio after just 1 point underneath at 18 with Ascoli, Brescia, and Südtirol. That surprise that we call it the Cenerentola, which is just like a beautiful story, by the way. How do you see, I mean, it's obvious, but I just want to hear it also from a Reggina standpoint. Like, how do you see this year's Serie B?
I mean, this is what I expected in terms of parity. I was never high on the Comos and the Venezias as I knew a team like Reggina and Bari and some of the teams from the south, Cosenza, who had a good start I thought people were underrating them a little bit. They know they have a coaching change. We'll see what happens there. I expected a lot of parity. I'm happy to see it because it will keep us in it for a while at least. But I wouldn't say I'm surprised by it. More of those recently relegated Serie A teams, though, I would expect them to be doing a little bit better. So that is probably the most surprising part for me.
So your Cagliari's in. By the way, good that you actually mentioned that. I totally forgot. So we saw a change on the bench for Cosenza, but also now for Venezia, which was something sort of like unexpected based on what they have done before with Sottirol. So that was already strange that they didn't keep him. But it's a lot of benches that have gone kaput. Yeah, and that's usually the story with us. So it's just nice to have someone who's hopefully in it for a couple of years. I don't know if I can't remember the last time we've had someone for more than one season, other than bringing Mimo Toscano back on 2 different occasions. Yeah, for us, like from previous ownership, which we're finally got rid of. But I don't know if you've ever followed at all, but read anything similar to Palermo and similar. I guess Palermo is the best example. Between Zamparini and Preziosi, which were the 2 owners of Genoa and Palermo and Genoa respectively, we were competing against who had the most coaches, like in history. Exactly, it's exaggerated, but it's true actually.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, I feel like the more you're talking about being a Reggina fan, it reminds me so much of being a Genoa fan because we keep cycling, and there's still. I mean, even we were talking about a little bit earlier. I don't think there's really a worry from a management perspective that this happens, but the blessing kind of conversation at some point, and then all of a sudden, are we going through another manager? I don't know. It's a familiar feeling for sure to have several, and I think even just the standpoint of having stability is kind of it's a win that you didn't think you needed to have type of a thing. Yeah, exactly.
You kind of get used to it, and that's the sad part. Like you're so used to saying, "Okay, now I'm tired of this coach. Now I want another one."
I want him out. That's our problem. That's why we're so bad at home.
I can't read the Facebook comments from the fan. They just drive me crazy. So I can't read them because of that impatience.
So you do understand Italian, though, right?
I would say I have a basic understanding of the language, a good understanding when it comes to my calcio glossary.
Yes.
I
can relate.
No, I'm asking just because basically on the fact that you're saying about the Facebook comments, which is Facebook is the biggest platform in Italian, the type of platform when they follow.
Yes.
Well, on this side of the ocean, obviously it's a little bit different, but so I was wondering if when you see those comments, are you always translating? It's just a curiosity, nothing more than that. The fact, or if you're like, oh yeah, that guy, I don't like that comment. I'm not going to read that.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say it's about a mix of that.
Of course.
Yeah, helping out with some translation when I'm not fully sure, but yeah, over the years I've seen enough of the negative comments. I can tell what people are saying.
That's so true. So I guess I'm going to jump into directly right now on the predictions, if I may. You being sort of half Italian, I'm hoping that you're not that against jinxing and stuff like that, where Italians are quite famous for. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to leave it at the round table. Whoever wants to start first, your predictions for before I go that, and I apologize if I started to say that, but what's the biggest? You kind of mentioned it already, but I wanted you to hear specifically, what's the weakest and what's the strongest aspect that we have to worry about Reggina?
Yeah. Like I said, in terms of weakest, it's that goalkeeper spot right now. Even when Colombi was in there, he didn't instill a lot of confidence, but he felt safer to me than Ravaglia. So if the younger keeper, Federico Ravaglia, is in there on Monday, I will be more concerned. And then Menez, he can be almost a strength and a weakness. So when he is not playing well, it is a weakness because there's no one there to really send crosses into. He's not running hard. When he's doing well, he's great. So I can almost put him as a weakness if it's an off day for him. But that strength really is the midfield. Whether it's the trio of Hernani, Meyer, and Fabian. Or if they throw Krisetic in there, it wouldn't be a drop in quality. So I would say that center of the 4-3-3 in the midfield is our strongest point.
Okay, so I guess I'll jump to Matt. What's your prediction for Monday's match?
I think it's going to be a difficult one for sure. I mean, I think it might end in a draw. Actually, I could foresee maybe a little bit more of an action-packed game than maybe we've seen recently for Genoa. Maybe a 2-2 draw. I'm curious about a couple of things. Like obviously, we won't have Badel with the red card. Strootman, we expect to play, although it's going to be somewhat of an emotional game coming off the loss of his father. And then, beyond that, we're kind of thin at the defensive midfield position. You look maybe at a Toure or somebody else coming in, and maybe a Galdamesh potentially, but he's also just back. So I think that's kind of a place to kind of circle some attention and see how we respond in that sense. I would expect to see Jagiello again in the starting lineup for us. I think him and Koda, Aramu, hopefully, and Goodmanson will be that four. I'm kind of big on those four specifically.
So you think, sorry to interrupt you, but you think we're going to still play the 4-2-3-1, even though we have a 4-3-3 against?
I think so. I think we're going to see the same from Blessin. I mean, we'll see if he does decide to kind of counter in a different formation, but I believe that this is kind of the way that he's found his best kind of unit thus far, or at least what he thinks his best is. So I foresee, I think on the Genoa side, probably a goal from Koda and again from Jagiello. I think that'll happen. Possibly it could be a Goodmanson, but I think it's going to be a really difficult match. I think it's going to be, for all intents and purposes, a pretty even one, and one where maybe not unlike our match against Brescia, we'll see a decent number of chances coming our way as well. So,
and that would be both, either there was Martinez or Semper in the goalie.
Yeah, I'm curious what we do there. I guess it kind of comes down to Martinez's fitness. I thought Semper was fine, but it does raise, kind of similar to what Dan had mentioned before. I don't know very much, honestly, about. I'll be completely honest. I've not seen a huge amount of Semper playing for Genoa specifically. I know we kind of expected him to be our number one, and obviously he had a good amount of time in the division last season. But I'm curious a little bit on his ability to play with his feet. I think that was a speculation with why he was not the starting keeper at the beginning of the season. And so if he does assume,
and you see Blessin uses a lot of that type of game.
Exactly. And so, I think like Semper really inspires confidence in the traditional way of a keeper. He's got excellent reaction, good, strong hand, all those things. But that's another potential where if you've got a 4-3-3 and you've got a Menez or some other player bearing down on you, maybe we see some nerviness at the back. So we'll see.
Dan, what's your call? What's your take on the match?
I guess we won't have as many uncertainties, injuries, or absences as you guys. Santander, his fitness is still up in question, but he has been playing anyway, so I'm not worried about him. Riccardo Gagliolo, he's been our best defender, the Swede-Italian center back. He scored a couple goals already this year. He's, I guess, a little bit beaten up from last week, so if he can't play, I'd be a little more concerned, but I don't expect too many surprises in the lineup. I think it's going to be a little bit dull of a prediction in terms of a 1-1 draw. I don't think we'll lose. I think we got a little bit momentum coming off our last win. I think I really like our wingers. There's been a lot of negativity among the fans. We have a Hunter and Rigoberto Rivas. We signed from Inter. A lot of people have been hard on him. I think he's a great player. We have Gigi Canotto, who we signed from Frosinone this year. He's a homegrown player who returned to Reggina after all these years. Canotto or Rivas, I think one of them will get the goal this week.
So 1-1. So 2-2, 1-1. Yeah. 2-2 from Matt and 1-1 from Dan.
That's right.
That's going to be a tough one. I'm looking at the statistics from Cagliari Regina. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the stats that I should look for, but I'm still looking at a Cagliari that was supposed to be doing, and I still see numbers that are better coming from Regina. I think I agree with Dan that it's going to be a tough one based on the fact of the outcome of their results, their form and their shape in at home. So I think it's going to be a stalemate. I think it's going to be a nice 0-0. It's going to be, actually I said nice, but I should have said like not boring, but one of those where both teams are going to be studying each other. Not too many options are going to happen because you're going to have a strong defense, even though Dan was talking about the weakness from his goalie. But if it doesn't get to him, there's nothing really too much to worry about. And I think that's going to still happen on the same side for our side because we do have a solid back end as well. Even though we do have a lack on our center back, the left back, sorry, center back is all fine. The left back with Payet that is out, we have seen, and I think it's going to be confirmed with Sabelli to the left and Hefty to the right, hoping that he's going to be in a better shape compared to last week. However, I think it's going to be a 0-0. Obviously, as a Genoano, I'm going to wish for our road type of results that we have done so far. But there can be also an opportunity for Regina to do that, that type of bad result that we wouldn't want to wish for, which like an example can be, and I don't want to bring it up as a bad, aura or whatnot, but like against Palermo. And it can happen. It's possible, especially if three of us are talking about a draw. It's, as we say in Italy, it's a tripla, which means it can go either way. So I want to say thank you so much for coming as our guest, Dan. It was very amazing to find a Regina fan, as you mentioned, also here in North America. I'm glad to have had you over. We'll definitely want to call you back soon. From it'll be like, what would it be, like in April or March or whatnot? So I'm gonna already renew the invitation from now. So if Regina fans want to reach out to you, where can they reach you?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter at Regina Fans, one word. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I simply don't have the energy to do those other ones. And like you said, yeah, it seems like most of the Italians seem to be on Facebook, a lot on Instagram. So it's been good connecting with the English speaking world though, on Twitter. A lot of Australian fans have connected with me. Based on our players we have, like I said, Rigoberto Rivas brings all the Honduran followers to my Twitter. So there's that influx too. So yeah, I don't know if I'll be tweeting along the Genoa match just because it's a work day. So hopefully I can even get to watch it. So that's the bad thing about the Mondays. But
I know
other than that, I'll be hanging around Twitter at Regina Fans.
Yeah, this may be a Helbez on demand game. We'll see.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I mean, me from Canada, I don't know what that means. I thought it was like you get a package and you follow it, or no?
It's great. Well, this is the running joke Fabry and I have, because for some reason Helpus is only available in like 3 countries, and one of them,
like Serbia, maybe.
Yeah, Serbia, Italy, and US. Like, come on! Like, I'm sorry, you got me like now all rattled up about it.
I still think it's hilarious that they serve nonstop like electric scooter ads in between like the half times and before the games. Like it's just like,
well, that's that little jingle is burned into my brain.
Yeah, I couldn't. I'm mad that I brought it up because I'm going to fall asleep to that tonight, I think.
Yeah, anyways, for us it's just like all illegal stuff. That's the only way for us to watch a Genoa match, because there's nothing official in Canada anyways. And I would, as I always say, I would pay for it. Just give it to me. But nothing.
Yeah, Helbez has been great, at least for us Americans. I was on Dawson for a couple of years, but that did require VPN.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at a wrap. Thank you very much again, Dan, for being our guest. Looking forward to have you soon. Looking forward to watch the match, even though it's on a Sunday against at Regina.
Monday. Yep.
So on Monday, we'll have a little bit of. We didn't talk much about the past games of Serie B and the ones coming up and whatnot, but it's looking tight, and as everybody's telling us, Serie B is a super competitive league. To the opposite of what everybody believes to be a boring championship. While I think it's like even better compared to Serie A. You don't get the poor and the rich. You just get everybody. You might get the one or two here and there, but the bottom and the top. But you lose one game, you're dropping. You win one game, you're coming up fast. So that's actually super excellent. So thank you again for listening to us. Looking forward to talk to you and listen to us soon and next week. And as we always say, Forza Genoa.
Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.